Hello, I'm Tom McNamara, host of Arizona Illustrated. From 1941 to 1945, Germany's Nazi regime murdered two-thirds of the Jewish population in Europe. Of the 6 million Jewish people who were lost in the genocide, about 1.5 million were children. Now, against all odds, some children managed to survive, and some of those survivors ultimately made their way here to southern Arizona. Their photos as adults now hang on the wall here at the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center. Some endured years of deprivation, starvation, and abuse in concentration camps. Some managed to hide or pass for Gentiles, or found people who helped them. Others fled with their families, becoming refugees with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Over the past few months, Arizona Public Media has collected the harrowing true-life accounts from 18 of Southern Arizona's child Holocaust survivors. Their experiences describe the brutality they witnessed and the acts of kindness that saved their lives. Here is one of those stories.
Sidney Finkel was born Sevek Finkelstein in Lodz, Poland. When Germany invaded Poland, he was 7 years old.
My city was bombed, and we were down in the cellar, and this is the first time I knew what it was to feel real fear. And we went into this little village, and it was crowded. There was lots of people from my hometown there. Then all of a sudden I heard these airplane noises coming from the sky. And as I looked up, these planes came flying down, and they were so low that I swear I could reach out my hand and touch them. And they were shooting their machine guns. And I was frozen to the spot. I couldn't move. Then I felt my mother grab me by my shoulders, and she knocked me down to the ground. And then she did something really fantastic. She lay on top of me. She covered me completely with her body so as to protect me. And after a while, I stood up, and I saw a lot of people with limbs missing. You know, they were burned. And I heard my name Sevek being called, and my father and I met each other, and we ran into a nearby forest.
The Nazis forced Jews into a ghetto. Sevek's whole family squeezed into one room. It was hard to find food.
Also, my sister, the one I loved so much, she was pregnant, and she was in a lovely Polish family came to us and said, we're going to put her into a Catholic hospital and save her. And that's what we did. I later learned that somebody in the hospital informed the Germans that there was a Jew there pretending to be a Pole. They came in, and she had delivered a boy. They took him and they threw him out the window. And then they took her to the Piotrków cemetery and shot her.
Then the Nazis began deporting Jews from the ghetto to concentration camps.
So we watched the train come to a town south of us, and the Jews are emptied out and put onto these trains. And they say the U-turn is going to come. But they also tell us that about 1,500 of us would be able to stay behind. Now we were about 30,000 at that point. So everybody wanted to have the job, right? So I worked in a glass factory, Uh, the day came when the trains were there for us. So what you do, you pray. I mean, but you know, that will always stay in my mind. It's not a prayer. People would fall on the floor and they would bang their head against the wall and they would cry out. And that's when I lost my faith in God. There was no help. There was no help.
On the train platform, Sevek's brother, Izzy, bribed a German guard. He, Sevek, and their father were allowed to stay behind to work in a factory. 2 of his sisters were also allowed to leave, but one of them, Franja, couldn't bear to be parted from their mother. The 2 boarded a cattle car together and died at Treblinka.
The war is almost over, and the German army is retreating through Russia and Poland. And we figured the war is going to come to an end, and we're going to be liberated in our hometown, so we can start it in our hometown. But they have different ideas. They take there's 2,000 of us left. And now, for the very first time, I'm marched into a station where there's just a train with like cattle carts waiting for me. And I just don't want to go in, and they throw me in, and I'm separated from my father and my brother. And inside is, you can't sit, it's nothing to drink, no washroom facilities.
He blocked out the memory of that 3-day journey to Buchenwald. Sevek shut down his emotions to survive the cold, starvation, and brutality. 4 months later, his father found him.
He was glad to see me, but I didn't feel any affection for him. I just felt like old people had no right to live. Didn't show any caring for him. He was on his way to a place underground that made missiles. That's the last time I saw him.
The war was almost over, and the Nazis wanted to kill as many Jews as possible before the prisoners were liberated.
We're told to go out on the march, and about 3,000 prisoners, including half of them Russian soldiers. The gates of Buchenwald opened up, and we were going. So it's a beautiful day, and we begin to march towards Weimar. That's the next big town where the railroad stations was. Anyway, in front of me was the father, Hungarian father and son. This was an 8-mile trip, and the father pushed himself away from the son, and he said, and fell into the ditch. And the son was shrieking for him to stand up. But there was the guard with the rifle, and we heard a shot, and that was the end. So we came to Weimar, beautiful town, and another train awaits us. See, a lot of the very next day that we left Buchenwald, the American army arrived. We went on a train ride of 3 or 4 weeks, open cars, and except for the first day when we had a loaf of bread, we had nothing. That's when we ate grass, and we saw people eat human flesh. And It was just, that was the worst part of my experience. The Germans were losing the war, of course, and they didn't know where to go, because if they wanted to go one place, it was already too late. It was already occupied by the Allies. You see, so they just moved back and forth.
The train finally stopped at Theresienstadt concentration camp, where Sevek was liberated. He was very sick with typhus and had a long recovery. One day, lying in bed, he heard his name being called from the street.
So I ran to the window, and lo and behold, there's my brother walking the street shouting my name, because he had heard that there was a kid from Buchenwald that had come. We never grieved. We never grieved. We were told to forget about it.
The full interview with Sidney Finkel will be available on the Arizona Public Media website, azpm.org, along with the stories of 17 other child survivors of the Holocaust now living in southern Arizona. And thank you for watching PBS 6.